Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome once again to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports right here on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network. And it was so good to hear Lenny open up our Tuesday. And so we got a lot to go over today. We're going to talk about a little baseball, a lot of football. I had a 14 team, yes, 14 team half point PPR draft last night. I'm going to tell you about my roster in that league. Yahoo graded it an A. I think it's the first time in a long time, if ever, that I have had a fantasy football draft graded as an A. There was one mistake I believe I made in the draft. I'll tell you about it. But overall, a good draft, and we're going to get into that. But before we get into a whole lot, let's talk about our current standings. And Lenny threw a dagger at me this morning. Yes, this Yankee team, they're out of control. They look defeated. Well, they have been defeated. They've lost 4 in a row, 21 and 20. And don't look now, but they only lead the Orioles by a game and a half. The Orioles are only a game and a half out of third place. The Yankees are no cinch to make a playoff. And if they keep playing like they are, they will not make the playoffs. Now, everybody thought at the beginning of the year that the Yankees were a shoe-in either to finish first in the division or to win a wild card. And they should be with the talent that they have. But it's not always about talent. It's about how you perform on the field. You don't win games by collecting baseball cards. And, I know they've been beset by injury. I know Judge and Stanton, but that's part of the game. You put players on your team that can play. Now, in recent days, Miguel Andujar has been hitting the ball really well. But look, the Blue Jays put up a 10 spot in the 6th inning last night. And I watched in the game a few observations. First of all, this heralded Yankee bullpen is not so heralded. In fact, they're not very good. And did you notice the way Adam Ottavino wore his cap on the mound during the inning? He pulled it down over his eyes like, man, I can't believe I'm here doing this. I mean, that's the way he pitched. Luke Voigt, for all of the great hitting he's been doing, he's not a first baseman. And you've heard the old story, the ball will find you. Well, it seems to find Voigt. Voigt is another DH. I'm not saying he can't hit. I am saying he's not a first baseman, at least not in 2020. Could he become one? Maybe. He looks slow. He looks awkward. He misses balls. Pitching is killing the Yankees. Right now, Seattle at 19 and 22. They trail the Yankees by 2 games. So the final playoff spots in the American League, you've got right now Tampa Bay. Let's look at it. You've got Tampa Bay at the number 1 spot. You've got Cleveland at number 2. You got Oakland at number 3. You got the White Sox at number 4. The Blue Jays at 5. The Astros at 6. The Twins at 7. And the Yankees at 8. And they lead the Orioles by a game and a half, and the Mariners by 2 games. And they only lead the Tigers by 2 games. So you got 4 teams. The Tigers, the Mariners, the Orioles, and the Yankees fighting for the 8th playoff spot. The Yankees are 4 games behind the Twins for the 7th spot. You're almost in a position where You have to think about the Yankees not winning the East at all. They trail the Rays by 6.5, and they're only like 18 games to go. Jeff Sutton chips in on Facebook saying, do you think the Yankees pitching woes have anything to do with new pitching coach Matt Blake? Look, I think, Jeff, it's a combination. You've got new coaching there this year, and I'm not knocking the coaching. It's different. And there's an adjustment period. And you've only got 60 games, not 162 games to adjust to it. So that's one thing. I think another problem with the Yankees, I'll just call it out, conditioning. Okay? Look, when will baseball players catch on that baseball is not football? It's not the bulkiest, strongest players who can be the most impactful in Major League Baseball. In baseball, it's fluid. It's stretched out. And the Yankees have these sluggers who are all muscle strong, and they're pulling muscles like crazy. They're not, look, Judge and Stanton are not offensive linemen. We'll talk about offensive linemen when I get to my football segment in just a few minutes. That's what we're going to spend some time on today, offensive lines and why they're important in fantasy football. But are the Yankees not catching on that the bulkier and more muscular Judge and Stanton are, the less they play? It's pretty simple. And so change the training tactics. Get these guys more stretched out, more limber, and less bulky. Also, another thing with the Yankees, other than DJ LeMahieu, how many single hitters do they have? You know, I saw a sign the other day, made me think about the Yankees. It said there's a coin shortage in America. Pennies are shortage. Singles in baseball are like pennies in our money circulation. Singles are in short supply. And the Yankees are loaded with power hitters, but no on-base hitters. There's no balance there. Torres is having an incredibly bad year. Judge and Stanton, I don't know when they'll play again. I mean, come on, when Brett Gardner is your third hitter, are you kidding me? I mean, I like his hustle. I like his spunk. I hustle too when I play. But should I hit third for the Yankees? Oh, no. So and then Gary Sanchez, who before being benched, his last game went 0 for 5. He was 4 for 46. I cannot believe if Clint Frazier went 4 for 46, he would have, well, he'd never gone 4 for 46. He'd have been benched long before that. Somehow, some way, Gary Sanchez is exempt. I think it creates bad karma in the clubhouse. I really do. They won't talk about it. I will. That's what I do. I talk about things. I get people thinking about it. Look, if you got a teammate who's 4 for 46 and you go 0 for 5 and you're put on the bench, I don't care who you are. You're human. You got to be thinking, man, he can go 4 for 46. Why he on the bench? And it creates this bad karma in your clubhouse. So, Jeff, you got new pitching woes with a new pitching coach. You've got training methods that I question. You've got treatment of some players different than others. There's no doubt. I mean, you know, Gary Sanchez came on the scenes as this great power hitter, and there was talk 3 years ago, oh yes, that the Marlins would have traded JT Realmuto for Gary Sanchez, but the Yankee front office, in all their lack of wisdom, and it's just like this trade deadline, saying that the price was too high, I call bull on that. I remember going back to Jesus Montero in 2010, and there was a trade offer. The Phillies wanted to trade Cliff Lee, who was a Cy Young pitcher at the time, to the Yankees, and in return get Jesus Montero. And Cashman said the price is too high. So they trade Lee to Texas, Texas eats the Yankees lunch in the playoffs, go on to go to the World Series, and the Yankees haven't been to the World Series since. They didn't go that year, and they haven't been since. Jesus Montero, too high a price for Cliff Lee? Are you kidding me? So the fourth piece to the puzzle is, maybe this is too strong, arrogance. Sometimes you can think you're better, what you have is better than it really is. And when you're offered a trade for an impact player who has established themselves, let the Jesus Montero for Cliff Lee illustration carry on to 2020. Eric Kratz is a better option, you're right, Jeff, right now than what they have with Sanchez. So there's a lot going on, and I wonder behind the scenes how much of that control or attitude had something to do with getting rid of Joe Girardi. Girardi was a great manager in New York. And I think maybe, and it won't come out, okay, but maybe the personality conflicts, the way of looking at things. Girardi more of a, let's see it happen, not this symmetric stuff we hear about. The Yankees need to change their philosophy. And when they do, the Yankees will be the Yankees again. But the philosophy is not in sync with the players that they have. It's not in sync with the game today, nor are the Yankees. Let's talk about something else. Giving you the American League. Let's look at the National League. The Dodgers at 30-12. Number 2 are the Braves. Number 3 are the Cubs. Number 4, the Padres. Number 5, the Phillies. Number 6, the Cardinals. Number 7, the Giants. Number 8, the Marlins. The Marlins and Giants tied at 500 records for 7 and 8. Just behind them, the Rockies a half a game behind, and the Brewers a game and a half behind. The Mets are 2.5 games behind. So you've got a lot of competition between 5 or 16 for the last 2 spots there. And remember, the Cardinals are 17 and 16. They only lead the Giants and Marlins by a half game. It is going to be a dogfight to the end. Now, I tell you a team that look out. We've talked about them. The Padres, they are for real. I know they'll finish second in the division, or it looks like they will. They're 4.5 games behind the Dodgers on this beautiful Tuesday morning, September the 8th of September. But do the Padres not scare you? Danielson Lamet last night. Did you check out Lamet? I'm sure he's been talked about everywhere. But Lamet pitching for the Padres. Let's look at his number. First of all, the Padres win 1-0. And as we look at the box scores, a Jurickson Profar walk-off extra base hit. Profar went 2 for 4. But Lamet went 7 2/3, 6 hits, no walks, no runs, 11 strikeouts. He has a 2.24 ERA on the season. Pomerantz has now thrown 14 innings this year. He's given up no earned runs and has a whip of .64. Yeah. The Padres are a scary bunch. They win in different ways. Tatis is hitting .314. Machado's hitting .295. Hosmer gets injured. What a brilliant move, not knowing what they were doing really in this respect. Not knowing Hosmer was going to be injured and maybe out now for the rest of the season. They go out at the trade deadline and get Mitch Moreland. You replace a Gold Glove first baseman with a good bat with another Gold Glove first baseman with a good bat. Hosmer was hitting .288. Moreland's hitting .279. Then they have Austin Nola, who they traded for the catching position, who's hitting .293. Myers, .284. Cronenworth, who I think could be Rookie of the Year in some leagues, 325. Profar's average up to 233. That's only significant because just a couple weeks ago it was around 195. And Grisham hitting last is hitting 267. That's a lineup, guys. That's a lineup that rivals the Dodgers. So I just think you've got to be looking at the Padres. The West Coast teams this year to me are the dominant teams. The A's picking up La Stella, Laureano, Kenya, Olsen finally starting to hit a little bit. No great averages here, but clutch hitting. Bassett goes 7 innings, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Diekman, a 0 ERA in relief all year. And Trevino pitches the last inning, a 6-0 shutout against the Astros. And just in that division alone, Oakland now leads the Astros, and the Astros have lost 5 straight by 4.5 games. Again, less than 20 games left to go on the season, unless you're a team like the Cardinals, who has to play a lot of doubleheaders. But we're 3 weeks away from finishing the season. That's right. 3 weeks away. Fantasy, reality, however you want to say it, you're 3 weeks away from the season being over. And these are some real fights to make the playoffs. So that's just to look at some baseball action. I want to talk about my 14-team NFL half-point PPR draft from last night. And I got my grade from Yahoo. It's a Yahoo league. And I got an A. I had the 14th pick out of 14. And I'm watching all these players just go and go and go. Oh, my gosh, who am I going to get? So let's do it. I'll just go through my lineup instead of my round per round, okay? So it's a 1-quarterback league. And at quarterback, I have Russell Wilson, North Carolina State University great, Seattle Seahawk All-Pro. You know, I love Russell Wilson. He does it through the air. He does it on the ground. He's clutch. One of the top 5 fantasy quarterbacks, and he's on my team. At wide receiver, I got a loot here, okay? I've got Keenan Allen from the Los Angeles Chargers. I've got Michael Gallup from the Dallas Cowboys. I have Will Fuller V from the Houston Texans. Emmanuel Sanders from the New Orleans Saints. CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. And finally, Jerry Jeudy, rookie wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. I love my wide receivers. At running back, I'm not very deep, but I'm very talented. James Conner for the Steelers, who all reports out of Pittsburgh are raving about Conner and his work. He's healthy. Improved offensive line. I'm going to talk about the Steelers' offensive line in just a moment. And I have the great Ezekiel Elliott from the Dallas Cowboys as my other running back. In backup, not a lot of depth. I told you, Duke Johnson from Houston. And I added Benny Snell as my handcuff. I was going to add the Dallas handcuff, but he was gone. But I got Benny Snell, who is a no doubt number 2. That's in quotation marks. He had an impressive camp, shown improved receiving ability. So Snell has locked down the backup role behind Conner and is expected to see a heavy workload, Conner is, in the Steelers' rejuvenated offense. So I think I did pretty well getting Snell and Duke Johnson as backups. Duke Johnson more of a pass-catching back. At tight end, I went early and I got Greg Kittle. I think Greg Kittle is one of the top 2, if not the top tight end in the NFL. And backing him up, I have O.J. Howard. This is a league with kickers and defenses and defensive players. So I have Van Der Esch from Dallas as my linebacker, the Kansas City defense, and Fairbairn from Houston as my kicker. So those are my draft picks in my draft last night. I'd love to maybe trade a wide receiver where I've got some really good talent for maybe a backup running back or a lesser RB1. That's always a possibility. But overall, with a grade A, picking 14th, I'm very satisfied and very happy with my draft. So I want to take a look with you at offensive lines and why offensive lines are important is because if you're going to run the ball or pass the ball, you need blocking. And the number one offensive rated line in the NFL, we'll go through several in the top 10 this morning. I may not go through all top 10, but I'm going to go through several of these in the top 10 as I have graded them out. The number one to me, unanimous, is the Indianapolis Colts. Quentin Nelson has taken this subpar unit to an elite unit almost instantaneously with him coming over to the team. The Colts had a bottom 10 offensive line in just as late as 2017. After that year, they added Nelson and became all of a sudden one of the league's best offensive lines. Now, Nelson's arrival also happened to coincide with improved health of players. Only 3 Indianapolis linemen played even 400 snaps in 2007, but then 5 each played 1,000 plus snaps in 2019. So they've had consistency and they've had health across that offensive line as well. Now, you always want to be careful predicting health to continue. I know that. I got it. Okay. But as long as the Colts unit does stay healthy and stays on the field, I think the Colts offensive line is the best unit in the NFL. Second to the Colts, I believe, are the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints let Larry Warford go in free agency, ostensibly replacing him with first-round pick Cesar Ruiz. Now, Ruiz played center at Michigan, but will likely slide into the right guard spot with New Orleans. And Ruiz aside, this New Orleans Saints unit has extreme continuity and maybe the best pair of tackles in Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk. Now, they also get the benefit of Drew Brees having maybe the quickest release in the league, but irregardless, this Saint offensive line has provided Drew Brees the opportunity to face the lowest pressure rate in the league last year. And I look for that to continue again in 2020. Now, I want to talk about what I think is the third best offensive line, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. If not for the retirement of Travis Frederick, who made his 5th Pro Bowl in 2019, the Cowboys may well have had the league's top offensive line. Frederick, whose Pro Bowl season was his 5th straight. Now, I'm ignoring 2018. That's the year he didn't play because of having the Guillain-Barré syndrome. He'll be replaced by some combination, though, this year of veteran Joe Looney, who started in Frederick's absence in 2018, and rookie 4th-round center Tyler Bladzik out of Wisconsin. Bladzik's going to be a really good center. I just don't know if now the Cowboys will put him in that position this early in his career as a first-year rookie. But even with that, the Cowboys, I believe, have the 3rd best offensive line in the NFL. What does that mean? Let's look at these top 3. It means running backs, it means passing will be more effective because Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis, he will benefit from this great offensive line. The Saints, their running attack with Kamara. Drew Brees already has a quick release. It's going to give more yards to the wide receivers, Sanders, and of course, Michael Thomas. And then in Dallas, this great offensive line, Zeke Elliott's a big winner, but so are the wide receivers. And CeeDee Lamb, the rookie wide receiver that you've heard so much about, this is one of the reasons I think CeeDee Lamb could be a 1,000-yard receiver in his rookie year because the offensive line is so strong. Let's go through just a few more offensive lines before I get out of here this morning. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, a top 10 O-line. Maurice Pouncey made his 8th Pro Bowl last year. That's 4 in a row, although that was as much as a reputation pick as a production one since Pouncey missed 3 games and played his fewest amount of games since 2013. Still, the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line carries elite continuity. I talked about that with Indianapolis. They have Pouncey, Alejandro Villanueva, David DeCastro. They're all entering their 7th year with the Steelers. And right tackle Matt Thieler is there in his 5th year. Now, the left guard slot will be filled by some combination of either rookie Kevin Dotson and free agent signee Stefan Wisniewski. But the Steeler offense is strong. Look for the running game to be reestablished this year. And with Roethlisberger back pulling the trigger at quarterback, the Steelers will be a team to be reckoned with, not only in their division, but throughout the playoffs this year. Couple more good O-lines. I want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as the offseason last year began, I would have said this unit in Philadelphia was probably a top 3 offensive line. But that was before the news hit of right guard Brandon Brooks tearing his Achilles, and that cost him the 2020 season. Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson are still around, and so this offensive line will not dip but so far. And the possibility of a Jason Peters reunion, and he remains unsigned, could help as well. But Brooks' absence with that Achilles means the Eagles will have a good line, but probably no longer a best in the league one. All right? And then finally, I want to talk about, here you go, the Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl champion teams don't become Super Bowl champion teams without a good offensive line. Michael Schwartz has been a second team or better All-Pro in each of his last 4 years. He never missed a game in the league. That's 8 seasons, 128 games, 8,431 out of a possible 8,434 regular season snaps. That's right. He's only missed 3 snaps in 128 seasons. Wow. Schwartz he ain't human, is he? I mean, come on. 3 snaps is all. Even a cramp would get you out for more than 3. But having a non-human like Schwartz in your offensive line has got to make sure you are a good O-line, and that's exactly what the Chiefs are. They've also got Eric Fisher, who has strong pedigree, and rookie third-rounder Lucas Niang, who could push Laurent Duvernay-Tardif for the starting right guard slot. The rich get richer. The Chiefs get better. What an offensive line we have in Kansas City. So that's just a look at some of the offensive line. We're going to keep doing this, talking about fantasy football, talk about baseball as we go along. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. I'm going to be back with you on Thursday morning. I may try to do a show tonight around 7 o'clock. So how about you guys come back and join me? I want to thank Jeff for being on Facebook and you guys in the chat room are awesome. The Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network family. You guys, I want to really appreciate you and tell you how much I'm thankful that you listen, give me good feedback, and listen to all of the podcasters that are on the networks. I've said it many times. It's a great group to follow. We try to provide you the best information we can to allow you to not only enjoy the sport, most of all, but also succeed in your fantasy leagues. So that's what it's about. And if I talked about an O-line this morning and you haven't drafted, you may want to talk about those quarterbacks on those teams, running backs on those teams, receivers on those teams, because the better the blocking, the better the protection, the better the stats are going to be. So I want to, again, thank you guys for being here. I'll be back with you later tonight around 7 o'clock and on Thursday morning right here on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.